Have you ever wondered how a wide receiver was able to go to the correct place to catch the football from the quarterback? It's all thanks to the Pythagorean theorem. And today, I, Bree Miller, am going to help you learn how to use the Pythagorean theorem and how to set up the equation, solve the equation, and how to find a missing side length with the equation. Now, later we'll get into how the wide receiver uses the Pythagorean theorem, but now let's just learn what it is. The Pythagorean theorem is how you find the side lengths of a right triangle. Now, A squared plus B squared equals C squared is the equation for the Pythagorean theorem. A is the leg of the triangle, B is the other leg of the triangle, and C is the hypotenuse. Now, you are going to set up the triangle labeled A, B, and C with the given variables for A, B, and C, and you will set up the equation. Here should be your answers. First of all, you should label the triangle as the two legs A and B. Now both of them are equal to 6, so you should have both legs as 6. And then your hypotenuse you should have labeled C, which should have been equal to 8.485. Now the equation is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So you insert A here. So 6 squared plus B squared, which is 6. So 6 squared plus 6 squared equals C squared, which is 8.485. So your final equation should look like 6 squared plus 6 squared equals 8.485 squared. Now that you've successfully completed the example question, please move on to answer number 1 and number 2 to ensure that you understand how to set up the equation and how to label the triangle. Now that you've had time to work on the questions, your paper should look like mine. You should have a triangle drawn. One of the legs should be labeled A with the measurement 4. The next one should be labeled B with the measurement 2. And the hypotenuse should be labeled C with a measurement 4.472. Then we move on to the equation. Since A equals 4, you insert A in the equation where A is in the equation. So you should have 4 squared plus 2 squared equals 4.472 squared. The 4 replaces the A, the 2 replaces the B, and 4.472 replaces C. Now, we'll move on to number 2. Your triangle drawn should look like mine. One leg should be labeled A with the corresponding measurement of 3. Your next one should be labeled B with a corresponding measurement of 4. And your hypotenuse should be labeled C with the measurement of 5. You then move on to the equation. The equation is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You insert the corresponding variables to get 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. You have now mastered the equation. Now that you've mastered setting up the equation, you are now going to learn how to work through it. Your first step is you set up the equation correctly, like I taught you before. Step number 2, you square all 3 variables, A, B, and C. Then step number 3, you add these new A and B's together. Step number 4, you then check your work. Now I will show you how to do all these steps in more depth with an example question. The example problem is A equals 3, B equals 4, and C equals 5. I will now teach you how to do step number 1, step number 2, step number 3, and step number 4 with the following example. Step number 1 for our example. The equation is still A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You now insert the variables given. So your equation should be 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Now that you have the equation set up correctly, you can move on to step number 2. Step number 2 for the equation, you square all variables. Now with step number 1, we've already decided our equation is 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. So now you square 3 squared, 4 squared, and 5 squared separately. So 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, equals 9. 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, is 16. And then 5 squared, which is 5 times 5, equals 25. You've now completed step number 2. Now, we're going to move on to step number 3. For step number 3, you add a and b. Our current equation, after we squared all variables, is 9 plus 16 equals 25. Now, to complete the equation, you add 9 plus 16. 9 plus 16 is 25. So currently, your paper should look like 25 equals 25. For the example, you have completed the equation, but you still must check your work. So step number 4 is check your work. You can check your work by making sure that your a and b added together is equal to your c squared. So currently we have 9 plus 16 equals 25, which turns out 25 equals 25. This means you did the equation correctly. Now that I've explained to you how to do the steps correctly, you are now going to use these steps to solve number 1 and number 2. I'll give you a few minutes now to work on the equation, and then we will check it together. Now that you've had time to work through number 1 and number 2, you're going to check your work with mine. Now we started off with a equals 6, b equals 8, and c equals 10. Your equation should be 6 squared plus 8 squared equals 10 squared. Then you square all your variables to get 36 plus 64 is equal to 100. You then add 36 plus 64 together, and you get 100. So, you have 100 equals 100, which, as you check it, is correct. Number 2, a is equal to 5, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to 7.81. Now, you set up the equation, 5 squared plus 6 squared equals 7.81 squared. Then you square all your variables to get 25 plus 36 is equal to 61. You then add 25 plus 36 to get 61. Then you know that 61 is equal to 61, showing that your answer is correct. Now you're going to show mastery of the equation. You will start with a test problem, where a equals 8, b is equal to 8, but c is an unknown variable. You are going to find c using the Pythagorean theorem. You now have time to work on the problem, and we will soon come together to talk about it as a class. Many of you are probably stuck on this question. You've probably gotten this far. You set up the equation correctly, as 8 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. You then squared all your possible variables that you could. So you got 64 plus 64 equals c squared. You then added a and b to get 128 equals c squared. But what do you do after that to get c? To find the variable c alone, you must square root a and b added together. This takes away the squared for c, leaving c alone. Your answer should be 11.314 equals c. Now that you've mastered the Pythagorean theorem, we're going to put your skills to the test in a quiz question. Now this question relates back to what I said earlier, football. The question is, if Joe, the wide receiver, runs 40 yards, then turns right and runs 20 more, how far did the quarterback throw the ball? Now remember, if Joe runs straight then turns right, that makes a right triangle, meaning how far the quarterback threw the ball was the hypotenuse of that triangle. The equation for your quiz question should have been 40 squared plus 20 squared equals c squared. The 40 stands for the 40 yards the wide receiver ran at first. Then the 20 squared stands for b, which is the 20 yards he ran right. This created a right triangle. Now the quarterback threw the ball at an angle, so it was the hypotenuse of the triangle. So, how far the quarterback threw the ball stood for c. So, your final equation should have been 40 squared plus 20 squared equals c squared. Now, after you squared all your possible variables, you should have gotten 1,600 plus 400 is equal to c squared. You then add a and b to get 2,000 equals c squared. You then square root 2,000 to get c. Your final answer should have been 44.721 yards is how far the quarterback threw the ball. Now that you can use the Pythagorean theorem in real-life situations such as football, you've mastered it. You have learned how to set up the equation, how to solve the equation in 4 steps, and how to use the equation to find a missing side length of a right triangle. Thank you for listening. This is Bree Miller, and if you have any questions about the Pythagorean theorem, please ask me in class or another teacher. Thank you.